All right, here we go again. Leland Live, talking to M5, halfway home here at 4:03 and doing our thing. Y'all hang out with us and we'll let you know what's going on. We're going to kind of recap some things we tend to do at the halfway point, let you know what else is going on out there in the world. I've been starting with the weather for the last couple of hours, mainly because we're in that kind of zone where this is going to be the talk of the town is how cold it gets. Will we get snow? Will we not get snow? The forecasters are in disagreement, but it doesn't look very possible. I guess it's probable for this weekend, but it depends on where you are. Looks like everything's moved more south than east. Of course, that could change tomorrow. So if it does change, we'll let you know about that. But meantime, like I've told you a couple times already today, cold blast last night, another one on Friday, another one on Sunday, and two more behind that. If you believe these long range models are where the cold weather's going, it's all coming down here out of Canada, and it's wintertime. So here we go. As we head toward February, January is going to be a cold one. By the way, I was reading some data on climate change. Y'all, have you noticed how it was with us? They were in our face about that for decades. Now they're just not talking about it. I mean, it's not being talked about. Some of that is new data has come in and proven the whole thing was a hoax. It's just a hoax. There was never any real science behind anthropomorphic climate change. The climate always changes. It's changed throughout the history of the world. It always fluctuates. And that's why we've had ice ages, but they've never connected it to human activity. And now there's some new studies coming out showing that Greenland, for example, which is much in the news, has actually more ice than it had 6,000 years ago. There's temperature studies coming out saying we're actually going through a cooling phase. There hasn't been a new intensity in severe weather. They'll use a headline when we have a fire in California. They were even blaming some earthquakes on climate change. Nothing to do with it. If we have a drought somewhere or a hot spell, which is always part of the cycle of the environment, they'll blame it on climate change. But statistically, it's gone. What's really happening, I believe, is politically the issue's lost traction for a number of reasons. We have to go back to reliable energy sources to build AI, and AI is going to be a massive consumer of electricity. And even in the best of times, if we'd never tried any kind of electrical cars or any of this other solar panels and all this, even that stuff was too weak to even power the old conventional economy. And now that we're heading into a brand new economy where the AI technology is going to change the world, and there's a sort of a moonshot space race for the first country to get ahead on the technology, and the power consumption alone is just going to be mind-boggling. And there's no way we do that with these new methodologies. So they've sort of dropped the argument in favor for the AI tech, and a lot of the research areas and a lot of the other parts of the chattering class that are in our economy. And of course, we know, just like the politicians we were just talking about last hour, science has just been bought off. It fell into groupthink for dollars, and I'd love to see that come back. I'd love independent, thoughtful, real deep research. Not that that's not going on. We've got plenty of incredible researchers, even in our own community and in our own state, but they understand the politics of it too. Sometimes you got to go along to get your grant money. And so with the climate science, you had to spit out the reports the government wanted for its political agenda. Now that's falling apart, and you watch it all change. Anyway, I don't even know how I went down that rabbit hole. Let's go back to some of the stories that are right in front of us today. And I think one of the biggest is the chaos. It continues to be, whether it's legit or not, it's the chaos in Minneapolis. I say that because every time I look up, it's back on all my television screens here in the studio. I've got a few screens that are trained in all the live newscast sort of surrounding me here in the studio, and they're doing it again. Now, Fox is giving deep coverage. They got a person down there in the middle of it. And part of me says they're inflaming the situation too by giving it so much volume. But it is good television. Anytime people are shooting bottle rockets in the middle of the street and people are getting their butts whipped and pepper sprayed in the face, that's always good television. But is it real? Yes and no. And I'll kind of go back through some of my thoughts on this. It's real in that you've got a governor who is trying to foment an insurrection in this country. I think he's already done it. This is much more to, if there was a litmus test for what one would always define as insurrection. It's this situation. It's organized. They've trained. They're committing acts of violence. They're resisting the federal government. They're defying federal law. They're impeding the implementation of that law by the feds. That's an insurrection. Its leader is the governor and that little beta male mayor that they have. It's an insurrection full of weak men and angry women, angry, pudgy, middle-aged women. It's amazing. But they're on the wrong side of history. They're on the wrong side of the law. I think they're on the wrong side of politics. The country has seen some of this stuff before. They're fed up with it. It's unrest for the sake of unrest, cherry picking a cause. It's becoming dangerous. And that I think in small numbers, I don't know that the whole country's going to get caught up in it. There's a danger there. It's got potential. But more people are going to get killed in Minneapolis before this is over because that's what they want. They're sending these morons out to fight with federal agents who are redoubling their efforts to protect themselves, and they should. And so it's just a recipe for disaster. In addition to the inflammatory rhetoric from Tim Walz last night, you've got the fact that they won't deploy any security personnel to calm their own streets. Why? Because as long as it's chaos, they can blame the chaos on Trump. It's like, you ever dealt with somebody in your life? All of us have dealt with somebody like this, right? They're provocative and paranoid, and they will provoke you, accuse you, insult you, assault you until you react. And then when you react, you're the crazy one. You're the violent one. You're the mean one. You're overreacting. And that's exactly what they're doing here. The left is trying to get the feds to overreact. And then they get on TV and say, that's what the feds want. They want violence. They want us to overreact. We've got to be peaceful. But man, these folks are Nazis. The minute you call somebody a Nazi, you have given a moral blank check to resist. The Nazi movement was considered probably the worst thing in humanity. And these idiots in Minnesota probably have never read a history book. They don't even understand fundamentally that the Nazis were socialist and much more akin to their centralized government control system that they all support. And so some of this is cover for the Somali fraud scandals that are still being revealed by the minute. I've got stories on that today too. And I mentioned, let me divert for a second. I mentioned election fraud, which is part of I'm telling you, it's part of the Minnesota story as well. If they would go to such lengths to allow billions of dollars of taxpayer money to be given to this political base, of course there's going to be election fraud. They're absolutely going to commit fraud in the elections, and I think they have. Today, what you've got, similar to Nick Shirley, and I don't have that video pulled up over here, but we might be able to play it later. Similar to Nick Shirley and here's a 23-year-old with a camera that goes in and just points a camera at the actual situation. So we can see the convenience store that's not really an ambulance service. So we can see the individuals that are coming and going that aren't doing what they said they would do to get millions of your money. You're the sucker. I'm the sucker. We go to work. We let the government take half of our pay, and then they hand it to these people to take out of the country, to not do the work, and to the tune of billions of dollars. And so it's spreading into Ohio. It's spreading into other states right now. Once the business model is understood, you've got others that are saying, hey, maybe we should check our own state records. And you've got citizen journalists out doing the work of what the mainstream journalists used to do and holding public officials accountable for the waste and the fraud and looking the other way and or participating. So over in Atlanta today, there are a couple of these sort of independent little citizens. I say little, I don't mean to be dismissive because their story is powerful. They did a walkthrough on an old abandoned apartment building that has been offline. It's not been used. I think it used to be a homeless shelter. It hasn't been used in decades, but there were 70 active voters registered in the last several elections to this apartment. So those people don't exist. They're illegitimate. We had an analysis of Wisconsin. If y'all remember this, we talked about it quite a bit. Where using diagnostic tools rather than looking for fake people, they started analyzing the voter data and looked for fake addresses. And they found and there was one case where I think they found 5,000 people registered at an apartment complex that had 100 units. They found several hundred people registered to a tire store. So when you cross-reference the addresses, suddenly you start finding the fraud. And it happens in bits and pieces. We see little evidence of it all over the place. But it's the citizen journalist through the fact that we have a platform like X. Think about it. If Twitter was still Twitter, you wouldn't know about any of this Minnesota fraud. How would they get it out? Facebook's going to regulate it. Instagram, the other platforms put you in social media jail if you try to report something they disagree with. Pure censors. But X is the Wild West. And if you go out and make a video and put your name behind it and are brave enough to do it and confront these situations, just taking documents and comparing those to reality on the street and letting the public know what's happening to their government, you get to put your story out. So it's just been something else. Now, we had another story today where, let me pull this up and see if I can get it going real quick. This lady was, and I'm going to play her soundbite. It's about 30 seconds. She talks about a situation where they found these H-1B visa people. They were getting salaries over $100,000 a year, and they were all coming. There was one single family home that had 5 different entities, legal entities registered to this home. Again, the addresses versus what's on the paper. They weren't running drug rehab clinics out of the back of a butcher shop. They weren't running a medical transport company out of a convenience store. And they're probably not running 5 businesses out of the single family house. Here's what this lady found.
See how cute this house is in Frisco, Texas? It'd be perfect for a family. A suburban dream. There's actually 5 different businesses registered to this one house, ranging from a nonprofit to for-profits to a tech company. And you'll also be glad to know that there's over 50 people who've already been approved through the H-1B visa system to work for this company. And with salaries of over $100,000 a year through this company that's registered through this suburban house in Frisco, Texas, you'll wonder why you're working your regular 9-to-5 job. Unfortunately, this is already the 2nd suburban house we've found that is registered to a bunch of different companies. Where are they getting their money? Where are they running their companies?
Frisco, Texas. That's not Minnesota. But what is in Frisco, Texas? Isn't that the home of that giant Muslim community they were trying to build? It's a copycat domino system. They're teaching each other how to do this fraud and then spreading out and doing it in different parts of the country. The good thing is, just like everything else that sort of catches fire and dominoes, you wind up with one person does a report, that rings alarm bells with somebody else somewhere else in the country who go about the same methodology to dig into it and find the same things. And at least there's some transparency. Will there be accountability? I'm doubtful. I really am doubtful. I think Trump's team will attempt to do it where they can. But again, I mentioned it earlier. We only got 36 months of this presidency left. Who's going to do it after that? Answer that honestly. If Trump doesn't get a lot of these things straightened out, defunded, and codified by Congress, and get this money train cut off by Congress, all the social media stories and posing and everything else that goes with it just kind of goes out the window. There'll be another fraudulent group to do the same thing, and these programs will get fully funded. Look at what they're voting on right now. Look at what the Republicans are going along with some of the funding that was already identified. It'll go right back. But it's nice to be living in a time where at least we're being validated by knowing that we're right about all this corruption. And we have been for years. People have been trying to point these things out for years, and we've got tools at our disposal to put light on it. And I appreciate all these, call them YouTubers. I don't care what you call them. These people are more effective than all the major networks put together. Jay is on a cell phone. Jay, what's going on, man? Line 1. What's going on?
How's it going, Leland?
Hey.
Yeah, I'm 65 and on Social Security disability, but I'm able to drive. So I started doing a little DoorDash.
Okay.
And supposedly there's no tax on tips, even DoorDash, which I have found out through my Social Security people, which I just got off the phone with, that Alabama is putting people under a private contract. What do you call that? A contractor service. And if you're on Social Security, then they're going to tax more off of your Social Security, which I did not know. I am a Trump fan, but somehow or another, the state of Alabama, they're going to sit there and tax you on your Social Security, even though there's no tax on tips. because it adds towards your the money that you make.
I'll have to look into that. You're saying that it puts you over those economic limits of you can only make so
Yes, and
much
you'll
of
get
your own Social
taxed.
Security. Yeah.
So they'll add it onto your Social Security tax.
Right.
Supposedly, at least that's what the Birmingham Social Security office just got finished telling me.
Are you saying the feds are adding it back on, or that the state of Alabama is doing that to you?
State of Alabama.
Okay. Let me do some digging on that. The legislature's in session right now, and I've got some people that monitor everything they're doing down there. Oh, and I'm finding a lot of woke bills that are showing back up to refund some of the cutting that they did with some of the DEI programs. I'll get into some of that later.
I
But
appreciate it, Lennon.
all right, man. Thanks for the heads up. That's very can be complex, but I've not heard about that. It's probably could be true, could not be true, could be some confusion, but we'll definitely look into it. Southern Skies Dermatology. Let's talk. This is a 100% skin cancer dermatologist, and you may not think you have skin cancer. The truth is, you don't know. Even if you've had it in your life and you think you know how to spot it, the trained eyes at Southern Skies can spot things that are concerning that you wouldn't notice. They can take things that are scaring you to death that you think is clearly some problem that's nothing, and get you cleared of skin cancer one way or the other, either by looking at it and going, no, you're good, which they did for me last year, or finding something that could save your life. Now, here's the fun news. I love this, and I can't wait for them to let me give you the location, but they're opening a new, I guess you call it a branch, a new location of Southern Skies to add to the 3 that they already have around our area now. And it's going to be a lot more convenient for me. I don't want to go into the details, but I'm excited for them. And we should all be checked. Dr. Mario and his team would agree. Even if you can't go to them, get regular screenings. We need to do that like we do colonoscopies and prostate checks and breast cancer stuff. But if you do have some concerns and you know that you're a little more vulnerable because you did a lot of sunburning, you're north of 50, there's no real age cutoff. Maybe there's some family history. I've got all those markers. Go see Southern Skies and at least get this off your list of doing healthy things. Part of healthy things is eating right, exercising, and all that. But do your health checkups. Don't be too prideful to go to the doctor every now and then and do these screenings. At least it'll give you peace of mind. Southern Skies Dermatology. This is all they do is skin cancer. SouthernSkiesDermatology.com. Back here in just a minute, y'all. Stay tuned. All right, y'all. Leland Live talking at M5. Let's keep going. Douglas Heating and Cooling, man, boy, they can be a lifeline in this kind of weather for two reasons. One, if your furnace starts to go on the fritz or can't keep up with this cold weather, and boy, you don't want your family to be freezing to death or just not comfortable, get Douglas over. You may just need a cleanup or a tune-up, or it could be time for a replacement. They can handle all that. They're going to add actually an additional unit to my home this year for some additional space, and I'm excited about getting that project going because I just trust them. I've used them for 16 years for every single thing I've needed: new installs, replacement systems, emergency work, second opinions when I wasn't sure what I was dealing with. These are great folks. Now, they've got a plumbing side of the business too that can handle, of course, any kind of repairs. If you break a pipe with several subsequent days where we keep dipping below freezing, that becomes a reality for some of your pipes. So make sure you're doing what you need to do to protect them. But if you do bust one, make sure you've got their number, or at least their website that they use here on the show, somewhere handy so you can get that taken care of. It's calldouglas.com. Simple enough. Don't trust your memory. Jot that down somewhere. Stick it in your phone, in your contacts, or whatever, in case you do have an emergency. And then if you just want routine maintenance or something else done that's on your mind, Jay runs a great company, and I've trusted them with me and my family for all these years. Calldouglas.com, license number 2017181, calldouglas.com. All right, let's get a couple calls in here, and then we'll do the bottom of the hour. Debbie is up next from Hale County. What's up, Debbie? Debbie. Do we have Debbie, AJ?
Yep.
I hear the hiss. Put her on hold. Sometimes people don't know exactly how to pull that off, or they're still listening to the radio. Buddy is up next on line 2. What's up, Buddy?
Hey, good afternoon. Hey, I got a couple of things for you. Is there a chance you could get maybe a constitutional lawyer? With all the money that's missing, how is it that nobody's been arrested? Because I have to believe, I used to work for the military department in Mississippi a long time ago.
Yeah.
And when you got federal funds, it was very clear what would happen to everybody involved if those funds came up missing.
Yep.
Because the governor signed basically saying, yes, we're getting this money and it's going to the military department. And then the adjutant general, same thing. And that money went where it was supposed to, or people would go to jail, supposedly. And my question is, for an attorney, and I know you probably have some with your contacts, just to have them discuss why it's taken so long. And I understand you got to collect evidence. The other part would be, with all that Walz is doing, how is it he can get away with saying the things he can without getting in trouble? I mean, maybe you can talk to that, but
yeah.
Anyway, hey, any updates on any of the money that's missing? Maybe AJ can play this song, Money.
Yeah, we put money on there.
All right,
Classic Pink Floyd.
Leland. Have a good day.
Right, thanks for your calls, buddy. Let me see if I can take those two parts a little bit at a time. I do think we're going to see arrests this time. There's a serious investigation going on. You've got to have prosecutors willing to police the government, not just do so for political reasons like they did against Trump and his associates, but people that are responsible for oversight of this stuff need to be looked into. They need to vet their bank accounts, their political accounts, and anything else where they may have personally enriched themselves or just through malfeasance. Depends on how the laws apply. I'll take up the compliance part and some of the other parts of your question on the other side. And, maybe I think I'm married to an expert I can drag into the show, make her debut here on the set with me, and talk about some of these compliance things. I'll explain that next, too. I think she's listening. I could be in trouble, AJ. I don't know. Back here in just a minute. All right, let's get after it again. Allen and Company over in Vestavia, ready to help you with your Valentine's Day. Boy, we're within a month of that, and y'all need to get on over there and pick something out for your boo thing. They've got beautiful stuff in a lot of price ranges, whether it be bracelets or charms or earrings. I don't even know. Pendants, cross necklaces. All those are nice Valentine's Day level gifts. Maybe if it is an engagement and you're going to do it right there at the Valentine's season, you've still got a month. And they can get you something exactly like you want it, exactly like she wants it. Fellas, maybe she wants a ring upgrade. You didn't do it for Christmas, but it's time. Let them work with you at Allen. They'll make that old sentimental ring look new again, bigger and brighter again, and repurpose the old diamond as well, because Allen is a custom jeweler, and he absolutely knows how to make exactly what you want. It's Allen and Company over there in Vestavia on Highway 31. Allen and Company, right on the car wash sort of fire department Chick-fil-A side of 31. Y'all can find them. Tell the Thompson family I said hey, and you'll love working with them, getting to know them, letting them help you with all your beautiful bling needs. Allen and Company this Valentine's Day. Y'all go see them. All right. Let me try to wrap up with that last call. AJ, let me know if Debbie's still there, and I want to get these calls in. By the way, if you want to get in, a lot of folks have been getting in late after I've had a couple hours to rant. 545-9950. We'll deal with calls one at a time. Bring them, and we'll put you on the radio. But to deal with Buddy's call, accountability, it's a cloudy thing. And is anybody, if you're an honest person, you work for these government agencies, compliance is a nightmare. You can talk to CPAs, tax attorneys. There are whole professions dedicated to compliance. And that's why I threw my wife into the mix a second ago. She runs a grant company that does research for nonprofits and some municipal entities and others that are trying to apply for some of these grant programs. But in addition to that, they also manage them. And I don't know anything about this stuff other than what I watch, what happens. And compliance alone takes real expertise. Some cities, it's so complicated, even their government staff can't keep up. So they'll hire these outside firms to make sure everything's done right so you don't lose the funding. And so you've got people that do it right and people that don't. Now, to try to answer that question, I think it depends on what state you're in, because the federal government generally will write its checks through state entities a lot of times. Not every time. They're direct grants that come from them. But in some cases, you'll have, say, in our state, we have ADECA. It's an agency called ADECA. I think we still call it ADECA. And that's pretty much their job. They're the clearinghouse for taking the federal funds and then doling them out. The only experience I have working directly with them was on a click it or ticket campaign, where if the state does the advertising to encourage seatbelt use, there's money for that, these kind of things. So if you've got a good gatekeeper on the state level and the grants are competitive and there's just a lot of attention on it, it can be done right. Now, there are always going to be people that try to cut corners and get by with it. And the sad thing is, just bringing her up as well, they do incredible work and I'm not trying to just promote her business, but she is an expert on this stuff. And I want to see if I can drag her in here in a day or two to talk about it, because people in that world are so frustrated by when corrupt people are able to just steal money. It's like they're cutting in line and they're taking from the system that others work day and night to make sure they do absolutely correctly. And she experiences sometimes entities that get turned down because they don't do things the correct way. They miss a deadline, or the form wasn't filled out properly, or they missed something in the application. They don't get the funds. So it's mind-boggling. It almost feels impossible to them that billions could just flow to these people that just got here, don't even barely speak the language. They're from a culture that does a lot of this shenanigans even back in their own country, but they've taught each other how to game the system. And the problem, I think, the weak link has to go back to, in the case of Minnesota, the governor and his people that work for him and his agency heads and an attorney general that's on the take. He's the guy with the handcuffs. If he's not going to bust you and the governor needs your vote and is looking the other way and have half of their staff helping you get the funding, the feds are counting on the state to be the gatekeepers in some cases. Yeah, the money's going to get stolen because for political reasons, And by the way, the federal government was in on it. During the Biden administration, there were stories circulating, these suitcases full of cash that were moving through the airports, where they would be moving $1 million at a time in cold hard cash back to the Middle East or Africa from the Somali communities in Ohio and Michigan and in Minnesota. The TSA was alerted. You got field agents that see this, and they keep seeing it. They were doing it every day. In one case, they moved $350 million in 1 year. They were so ballsy about it, they declared it. They brought it in and said, TSA finds it and goes, what is this? I'm moving this to Africa. Oh, okay, my friend. And they just let them go. The TSA told their bosses, their bosses ran it up to the Biden administration. The Biden administration said, stand down. Just let them do what they got to do. Our government was so corrupt, especially in the last administration, that they would hand these people every opportunity they could to get them here and keep them here, to make them comfortable. So they set up a homestead and changed the face of the country, literally, culturally, legally, politically, all of that. And this has been the plan. It's the plan of the globalists. They're doing it in Europe. They're doing it here. It's not organic. It's not spontaneous. It is engineered and designed by your government. Okay? So the feds are in on it. Walz is in on it. Of course, these people are going to get in line for the free cash and do whatever they want with it. So you don't have a situation like Alabama, a Republican state that's trying to follow the rules to stay in compliance with a left-wing administration. So that's where the story is. It's multi-layer corruption in our government that's not following the rules, and where there's subjectivity, and you have a governor that can cut a corner, and who's going to know? And it took the election. You know what it took? And this may sound melodramatic, and it is a little bit, I guess. It took a bullet missing Trump's head by a half an inch to be the difference in us knowing about this or not knowing about this. It took Elon Musk buying a free speech platform so that we could find the truth out. It took the brave, young social media, YouTube types that are taking their cameras and their investigative tools and going to the ground and asking the questions. They're filling a void that the old professional media they don't do anymore. So now that it's in the open, the investigations have started. You've clearly got a motivated Trump administration that's going to look into it. They're sending prosecutors to this hot spot, and I hope people go to jail. I hope people in the government are held accountable just as much as the Somalians and the people that were also gaming the system. It wasn't just them. They couldn't have done it alone. A Somalian, if you had a community of Somalians to move to Montgomery, do you really think they'd have gotten away with all this stuff with the checks and balances and the people we have in office here? Nope. That's why it's not happening in the red states that we know of. Now, there's some fraud everywhere. There's fraud everywhere. And we all grew up with street level welfare fraud. That's where, you got this lady with 5 kids and she's driving a brand new Cadillac and she's getting the checks and you're busting your ass and they're riding off the money. I saw a statistic today where the average Social Security recipient was getting a check every month from their hard-earned work, paying into that system their whole lives, and they're getting back a couple $1,000s a month. And on average, some of these Somalians that were involved in this were getting back multiple times that. They're not even citizens. They didn't pay in. They're not bringing anything of value to this country. You can give me that line all day long that they enrich us and help us be enriched. No, they don't. You either come here to contribute and invest and be part of a community and assimilate, learn the language, respect the institutions, know the Constitution, and do those things, or you come here to take. You either come here to build or you come here to destroy, and many of these communities in vast proportions are on the take. This community in particular. The mayor the other day said, and I strongly disagree, that just because of a couple of people, you don't blame a whole community. The hell you don't. When 90% of these people are on some kind of public assistance, I also blame Joe Biden for that. And then you look at the rest of the state, and it's anywhere, depending on the program, 7 to 30% of native Minnesotans, black, white, Hispanic, whoever, Americans, they're not getting assistance to those levels. And then you look at the cases that have been made of people that have already been arrested and busted so far, 90% of them were from Somalia. Yeah, you do blame that community. You in the longest traditions on immigration in our country's history, we did not allow immigrants from any nation, Italy, Ireland, anywhere, if you were disease ridden or you didn't have resources to come here. Look at the history. Go to Boston and look at the Irish that were turned away from Boston because they had no family, no job, no business, no money in their pockets, and didn't add anything. You had to have resources or somewhere to go. If you could come in through Ellis Island or some of the other immigration, didn't matter you were white and European. We had a similar standard for the whole history of this country. So you come in, and those communities were wildly discriminated against. Are you kidding? Do you know the history of New York City and the Italians? That's why some of them had to group up and live in their own neighborhoods. I mean, block to block, it was controlled by certain ethnicities. Same thing in New Orleans. There's probably a better blend of ethnicities and cultures in New Orleans than even New York in the separate structure that they had. And of course, a lot of that's changed. But look at the history there. There's statues to the problems and the abuse the Irish faced when they came to try to set up shop in Boston. And eventually they found their way as a community. But if you got off that boat and you weren't going to Uncle James's house and you didn't have a job and you didn't know why you were here or how you even got on the boat, hell, in a lot of cases, they wouldn't even let you on the boat. But they turned people away at Ellis Island. If you had TB, you were turned away. If you had some of these other diseases, and you know what? That wasn't cruel. That was protecting a nation. That was looking out for the interests of the people that are here and measuring and controlling who came here and making sure they had a proper place to be. You could not in any circumstances come here and get on the dole. That didn't exist, and it didn't exist until very recently. So, yeah, there was a whole systematic program full of billions, if not trillions of dollars being used to aid these people to get here for political purposes, for the power of the American left, so that they could grow their power structure with people that would, by the way, come here and be dependent on them, because with their belief system in collectivism and central planning and control, they don't want free people. They don't want free people that will stand up for their individual rights and make their own communities and work hard and keep their own stuff. They need people that depend on them for a living, so they vote for them to keep their living, and these people stay in power forever. That's exactly their business model. They don't want free people that'll just go out and live their own rugged individual lives. That's why that moron in New York City preaches against rugged individualism. It's an anathema to everything they believe. I'm the opposite. I know what built this country and the attitude and the traditions and the respect we had, and it's dying and it's disappearing. And a lot of these folks eventually, when they eventually take over, they can eat each other, and our great nation's going to collapse. We can say we at least made it 250 years. I think we'll make it to the anniversary this summer. But all this was designed. So I guess I went on a long ramble to try to straighten all that out. But, buddy, it's going to take prosecutions of not just these people, the newcomers and the immigrants. Some of them are just going to go home. Some of them will face jail time. Most of them just going home. The money's gone. I don't think it'll ever come back. They use crypto. They use cash. It's gone. The government will never claw that money back. They'll never claw the PPP money back that we wasted during COVID, another fake crisis in our country. We'll never get that money back. It damn near broke our economy. But some of these public officials, especially Mr. Insurrection himself, needs to be imprisoned. This guy is fomenting trouble. At the same time, I said it earlier, he's trying to start a civil war, and he's already committed one of the greatest frauds in this country's history in his tenure as governor. He is a failed individual, desperate right now, and he's being ungovernable and irresponsible. If there's any governor in the history of this country that's ever deserving to be charged with insurrection, it's Tim Walz. And maybe that little beta male mayor of theirs as well. These people are in position to deal with the problems they're having in their city, and they're letting it spin out of control on their own. It meets every single test of the Insurrection Act. And I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. It may sound bold, but we can relate to it here in the South. We went through our own history of this stuff here in the South when leaders in the 1960s thought Alabama was not subject to federal laws on civil rights and would not be forced to comply and would put up a violent resistance in our government where some of these discrimination laws were codified and in the streets. And an insurrection was declared, and the government had to step in and to keep Alabama in compliance in those days. And if they don't throw Tim Walz out, if these leftists don't stop with those tactics, if the Democrat Party can't see what's happening with their own a guy that was their vice presidential nominee, they owe George Wallace an apology. Back here in just a minute. Leland Live. All right, y'all. It is 4:54. We are doing it too this afternoon. Leland Live Talk 99.5. Y'all get on back in here and we'll do our thing again. All American Metals bringing you the show tonight. This is the one-stop shop. If you've got a metal building to put up, and sometimes you have a commercial need. You're in business. You need more space. You're starting a business. Need a warehouse. All of those things. That's a huge portion of what they do at All American. But for us residential customers, a nice pole barn on your property can be the trick. Hunting property, personal property, lake property, barn dominiums, from the design work to producing every single component in that building, they're going to handle it for you at All American. And it's nice to have all that in one place. It just simplifies things. They're going to be custom because they produce the building. So they'll make it exactly like you need it. And they're going to be fast because they've got quick turnaround time on design, on producing the parts, getting it delivered. You'll be also surprised at how fast, once that concrete pad's ready, how fast those buildings go vertical and you're inside before you know it doing your other work. They're going to be cheaper and quicker and custom all day long over their competitors. And they've been in business here in our community since the 1960s. These are real steel men and patriots. What a great family, a couple of families that put this business together years ago. This is who you want to work with to get these projects done. It's All American Metals. You can get them online at aa-metal.com, aa-metal.com. Okay, let's go to the phones. If Anthony's still there, we'll let him take us to the top. Anthony, what's up, buddy?
Hey, I have a question. With all the stuff that's going on in this country and the government not doing anything about it, when are the people, going to have to do anything about it? If the government's not going to, take care of it, at what point do we have to start taking care of it?
Well, if you believe our founding, we are the government. And so we've just got to stay on those officials. I think this administration is taking it seriously. I'm not sure about Pam Bondi, but I do think there are some serious prosecutors that will go after this mess and hold some of these people accountable. If nothing, and look, we're still uncovering stuff. It's kind of overwhelming how much was being done. If we can only get Congress to put this stuff into law and to stop some of the spending to begin with, or put better checks and accountability on this spending. I've got something I'll play for you next hour out of Ohio, just the state of Ohio, seeking to do this very thing. That's how we do it. It's getting in the streets and doing what the leftists are doing right now is not going to change anything. We were left a brilliant system by the founders to fix this. It's still there. The Constitution's still there. Those checks and balances are there. We've got to be tuned in, educated, and aggressive and vocal and loud as citizens to make sure that accountability happens.
Well, I certainly hope so, and I appreciate talking to you, buddy. This is the first time I've got to talk to you.
Well,
I've
thank
called
you.
your show before, but I've talked to other people on your show, and
well, I'm glad you called.
This is the first time I've got to talk to you. So,
Anthony, good to talk to you,
you
man.
have a great day, man,
sometime.
and
all right, you
I've been
too,
a
buddy.
faithful listener. So,
that goes to the Doge thing too. I mean, if these Republicans mean it, it's time to put this stuff into action. It's time to cut it out of the budgets. It was identified and clawed back. We went to court over it. Trump won all those cases. The federal government clipped the wings of all this fake pass-through stuff. And Republicans have, starting in some of the bills they've passed just today, are refunding some of these things while Trump's still in office. Just wait and see what they do when he's gone. The Democrats will cut deals with them, and they'll put this funding right back. Or they'll wind up in the minority, and then they'll just throw their hands up and make excuses for a while. Oh, well, we can't do anything. We're in the minority. If you'll give us some more campaign funds, why, we can win and get the majority and stop all this. Really? Really? It's disappointing, but it is what it is. All right. I've got a soundbite. I was looking at, I keep mentioning Ohio. Ohio is also caught up in this phony child care scandal stuff. They're starting to find these cases there, and a Republican, African-American Republican, by the way, in Ohio has just proposed a bill that I think other states need to look at. This guy's serious. Our own American communities, this is not a race thing. This is American versus people that are not American. You can't come here and take money that is designed, designated, and earmarked for, in these cases, kids with autism and poor people that can't get themselves to the doctor with medical transport, and child daycare centers for people that need to work and can't afford daycare. That's a ripoff of some of the most vulnerable citizens, real citizens in our communities with this whole scandal. We'll talk about it more here in just a minute. Leland Live, Talk 99.5. Y'all stay tuned.